Three, two, one. We are back. Hey, welcome back to Real Estate Coaching Radio with your favorite real estate coaches, Tim and Julie Harris. Why am I trying to sound like I'm a radio presenter from the 1980s? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Too much coffee, probably.
Could be.
So this is a really cool topic. It's not really one of our traditional shows, but Julie spent a lot of time. She's working on an article for the National Association of Realtors. And I love the statistics. Julie and I love to go facting. That's what we call when we hear something. I'll tell you guys something funny. And don't worry, Julie, I'm not going to talk about tariffs. Well, I am a little bit, but
You might.
I'll give you guys a for example. So you're hearing all of this doom and gloom over the tariffs. And I've been hearing it too, Julie, and I've been hearing it too. And, we're not pro-tariff or anti-tariff. What a silly thing to be pro or, for or against a tax. But we did our own homework and we were writing down some of the headlines that we are getting asked about. And we have a lot of you that were saying, Tim and Julie, don't you think this is going to create havoc in the real estate markets because the cost of new construction is going to go through the roof? And I mean, on the surface, it makes sense. After all, all these imported items and lumber from Canada. Kept on hearing about the damn trees from Canada, didn't we? All the lumber from here and the windows from here and the windows from there. Well, we did some homework. And then we did it for you guys 2 weeks ago, and we told you what we discovered. And it was yesterday, I think, that the building association or some commerce department or something came out with a similar number to what we had researched. 7% of the materials going into a new home are imported. 7. And of the 7% of the whatever those items are, all of them can be sourced domestically. So that means that the cost of a new home won't go up from the tariffs. And if you go through all of this misinformation that's bouncing around out there about tariffs in general, remember, we're not pro-tariff or, it's not like we're on team tariff. I'm going to wear a t-shirt that says tariff,
No.
right? But what I'm trying to impress upon you is how much horrible information there is out there. And you've got to assume until what's the old saying, Julie, trust but verify,
Yep.
So you have to trust. Actually, nowadays, I would just say verify. Don't even bother trusting. Verify, then trust is the route I would go. How does this loop to today's topic? So today's topic is from scrolls to sold, mastering Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. But what we're going to be doing and what was really fascinating to both Julie and I were the actual facts and statistics about how this stuff actually plays out in terms of its usefulness to you. Because Julie and I are big proponents of proactive lead generation. That's you actually doing the real work of real estate, picking up the phone, having real conversations. And yet everybody in the real estate industry is telling you guys to, do social media, do branding. How many times have you heard this year so far somebody tell you, you want to be the mayor of your town? Or, why would you want to, pick up the phone and call an expired where you can message them on Facebook and all the rest of this stuff, right? And it's confusing. If you're not having the facts like what we're about to give to you today, you might easily say, well, why would I want to listen to Tim and Julie and actually pick up the phone and call somebody and put myself in peril where they might reject me or say something I don't need or don't, it'll hurt my feeling and don't know how to overcome and all these things. So hell yeah, I'm just going to message them or send them a postcard or something. And then it removes the risk to me. My emotional risks will not be in play if I just do something passive. Well, I'll tell you why you don't want to do that, because it doesn't work and it's a lie. And we're going to prove it to you today. So did I set the bar high enough for you, my dear?
You did. So let's jump in from scrolls to sold, mastering Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And a lot of this is just understanding the differences between them and what they really do and what they are. But first, let's talk about that stat that nobody wants to say out loud, but every smart agent, all of our listeners, need to know. The average conversion rate, and I researched this many different ways, the average conversion rate for online real estate leads is between 0.4% and 1.2%. Now, translated that into reality, that means that for every 100 to 250 social or web leads, you might close one. Think about that. Think about how many times you've got to text, scroll, communicate with, email, hunt down, and maybe even talk to for up to 250 quasi contacts. I can't even bring myself to call it a contact, where you might convert one lead. Now, where did those sources come from? Again, that's not just something that I'm throwing out there. Although you and I have known that for years from
Well, but
coaching.
everybody does, Julie. I mean,
They don't like to admit it though. And I'll prove it here in a second. Go ahead.
but they don't like to admit it because that means that they're going to go, holy crap. So basically, you're saying all this stuff I've been doing is a complete waste of time. We're not saying it. You already know it's true. And these are the facts. We got it from Housing Wire. The Close says this. Real Geek says this. Regular cite this conversion range and the norm for internet generated real estate leads. Those include the leads coming from Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, content, website, opt-ins, all that. And we've known this forever. How do we know this? Because when we had a real estate business, we knew that the people in our long-term drip campaign, because we were learning on the job, just like unfortunately many of you guys are, there were no real estate coaches or trainers, no one to tell us the truth. But had we known what you now know, long-term lead follow-up, especially from online lead generation, is literally a complete waste of time. And agents, it's so tragic because they pin their hopes on having a larger database. And of course, the people selling you the CRMs and all the hopium of online lead generation is going to be the Shangri-La. You know, they're always telling you, oh, you just need more leads. Oh, you need to send them more videos. You just need to drip on them more. You need to do this. You can log in and you can see how many times they've looked at your emails or opened your videos or just, who cares? Honestly, we now know and have known forever that it's effectively a waste of time. There you go.
Not because we say so, because the stats are there.
The jury is in.
That's right.
Right. And it is, and the idea has been convicted of being
Right.
no bueno. Well, Julie, it's also interesting too, that most of the leads that you will get are going to be first-time buyers too. They're going to be, you know, essentially low consumer type buyers. Those are the types of leads you're going to get from online lead generation because the demographics of the people that are using those social platforms, generally speaking, are going to be first-time buyers, and more sophisticated, higher end, more profitable buyers or sellers for that matter are going to be sourced from the sources that we have you guys focus on in Premier Coaching. All right, so Julie, let's move on to the next point. So again, we're hitting you with these facts. I know you guys are going to want this newsletter because you're going to want to have these facts and statistics for yourself. The newsletter is where all of our notes and all of our podcasts live, ready for you to download our videos as well. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. And by the way, harrisrealestatedaily.com is free. Takes you 2 seconds to opt in. And you will be invited to the upcoming masterminds that Julie and I are doing, where we're going to be solving the 3 biggest challenges that agents are having. We did our first one last Friday, and we had 300 or 400 people on the mastermind. It was fantastic. So every mastermind we do, we're going to get better and better, but we're overcoming the 3 biggest challenges that our agents are having now. And obviously it's going to be lead generation. It's going to be branding. It's going to be business systems, those 3 things. And we're going to show you our systems and show you what you can do. And by the way, all of our ideas cost you nothing to implement, and you can implement all these ideas. We usually put them all in place, usually within maybe a week or 2, and learn the art and the science of really making them work over time. But the moral of the story is the only way you're going to get invited to that mastermind, and it's free, by the way, is just if you're a newsletter subscribers, so go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. All right, Julie, let's move on.
Yes. So we've established that the conversion ratio is pretty awful. However, we also know, and here's a stat that's in your notes, not necessarily in the thing there.
I see it.
90% of agents use Facebook. Okay, that's fine. 52% use Instagram, 48% use LinkedIn. So we're taking this time on the podcast to explain what each of them does, what's their demographic. If you're posting on there, what things actually do work. And by work, sometimes we just mean that engages maybe your followers, your friends, your past clients, because 57% of realtors believe social media does help maintain client relationships. So we can set aside a little bit of lead generation and look at what do each of these platforms do. We're going to look at who's using them and how long they're hanging out there, what content actually works to get engagement, how top agents are turning views into closed deals when they do happen, and which one of them, I put in cat videos, are competing for each. But that's just
Hey, Julie, can you do me a favor? When we're
Sure.
posting the notes on our newsletter, use these notes.
I'm going to
Okay.
supplement those. There's
Yeah.
a few things in there that conflict with each other, so
No,
I'm
I
still
see.
polishing that up. But
Yeah,
yes,
but
I'm gonna
these notes
enhance
are
it.
fantastic because that's
Yep.
where it's giving all the percentages, and your notes are giving some of the percentages. And I'm sure
Yes.
some of the analytical types, who are also the ones that are generally attracted to all this complicated marketing stuff,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are going to want to check all your facts. So let's make
Yeah,
sure
I'm
we
going to
give them
merge all
to 'em.
that stuff.
Yeah, we're ready for you guys. We know some of you guys are going to try to fact check us. Fact check away.
Good luck
I've got
with that.
I've got an Ask Julie. She's undefeated.
so far. We'll see.
And now
Okay.
she's got Grok and OpenAI to have her back. So good
My
luck trying to
assistants.
invalidate one of her points. Go ahead,
That's
Julie.
right. Well, so let's take Facebook first. Facebook, you can think of as a community connector. The demographics are 3 billion monthly users, but that's globally, right? The most active are the 25 to 34-year-old age group. The average time is about 31 minutes per day. So it's not all day, every day, but that's the demographic, 25 to 34, about 31 minutes a day. And 98.5% of the time, they're doing that on their mobile phone.
Let's talk about where they go with all this. I'm just going to bounce around a little bit since this is, um, at the end of the day, what you guys need to be thinking about is really what the point of the social media is. If we've now essentially proven that it's not going to generate you any real leads, what social media is going to act as is the place where they're going to go to familiarize themselves with you. They're going to get to know you. Maybe they might discover you for the first time on social media, but that in itself isn't going to actually generate any sort of long form relationship, which you need to have in order to substantiate, in order to create an actual, hopefully down the road, conversion to a lead. Okay. So where most agents fails, they don't understand how the actual system of the funnel works. So you're going to want to have your social media stuff. The social media is going to act in some cases as a way for you to establish new relationships, but you got to pull those relationships out of social media and you have to put them in some kind of email campaign where you're going to be the one that's going to be communicating with them, because otherwise you're not going to control the information. So your whole focus when you're doing any form of social media is to do some kind of call to action that's going to get them to want to do your newsletter, which is what we actually are strong proponents of all you guys having. And we have included in Premier Coaching, by the way, we do have a blueprint on how to actually start your own newsletter. I, worked on it for the last 2 days. And so the newsletter itself is something that is a very, very effective way for you to establish a long tail, high level relationship with the folks in your neighborhood. And call your newsletter like, if we were still selling in New Albany, Ohio, our newsletter would be called, New Albany, Ohio newsletter. How about that? Nothing complicated. Say what it is. Don't try to be overly clever. You don't have to brand it with your name. You can if you want to, but really at the end of the day, make it about the community in which you sell in, which they live in, right? But the big takeaway is social media in itself is mostly useless unless you're creating leads from social media, and you're going to have to funnel those leads from social media into a newsletter, and you're going to have to create robust calls to actions to get them to want to actually subscribe to your newsletter. You heard what Julie and I do. We give our notes there. We give proprietary information there. What I would do if I were doing a newsletter, and Julie and I have talked about this, is I would have what would amount to a very elaborate market data that I'd come out with every week. That would be the thing that most people would want to know about. Just the deeper dive into the actual information you can get out of the MLS is what they're going to be after. There are services that do that for you. So you don't have to learn how to do all that stuff yourself, but you can do it for you. There's services that make newsletters for you as well. So none of this stuff is complicated. And as far as additional information, you could have information about the local school schedule, all the things, right? All the things that you living in this particular community that you want to know about, that maybe you have to pop to 2 or 3 different places to find out about. And that also would be a great platform for you to launch your podcast, which is something else we teach you guys how to do in Premier Coaching. But all these things in conjunction, you got to remember the whole point of the social media stuff is, okay, like for example, I'm thinking about hiring a roofer to fix our roof. And, our neighbor says, well, you got to call, Rick's Roofing. All right. So what I'm going to do probably is I'm going to find out more about Rick's Roofing. I don't know Rick. It's a referral from a trusted friend or advisor. I'm going to go check out Rick's social media pages and see what kind of, presence he has. If he has no presence, that probably is going to be a red flag to me nowadays. But if I see his, lots of past happy customers and pictures of fixed roofs and the whole thing, and I see that most of his work is in my community, I'm good with Rick. I'm calling Rick. It's his job to lose at that point. Guys, get it? So the social media did the pre-selling for him prior to him actually speaking with me. Even if Rick comes out and he's a little bit more expensive than Bob, who I also called out, because maybe Bob, fixed a roof down the way, I'm probably still going to hire Rick because he was a referral from a trusted friend or advisor, and he looked like he was substantive online. You guys following me on all this? Now, as a real estate agent, your mission is to generate the interest in what the content that you've created, but most agents just stop right there. You got to feed them to a newsletter, feed them to an email list, and then obviously have phone numbers in there that you can call them. That's the real way you create real valuable leads from social media. But ultimately, all of this stuff is passive. It takes a long time for it to work. It takes a long time for you to figure out the hooks in your social media to get them to want to even respond to you. It takes a long time. And we don't think any of you should be doing this as your sole means of lead generation, because you'll starve. What we want you to do always is the proactive lead generation before you even think about doing the passive lead generation. Proactive is you picking up the phone and having a conversation with a decision-making adult, ideally about selling their home. Passive is all the other stuff, right? Now, if you do the proactive and you're doing the passive, the proactive will be enhanced by the passive. In other words, if you're calling someone, you called an expired seller, the expired seller, you've set an appointment with them, you followed our system, you send the pre-listing pack, the whole thing. The seller's going to research you prior to going there. And again, if you've got a really good social profiles that we teach you how to do in Premier Coaching, you're going to be right as rain. You're listing to lose again, right? Versus having no profile or having, your profile is a picture of you, just things that don't even make sense for somebody who's thinking about hiring a new listing agent. Hopefully you guys are following along on this. But what Julie's point of this, and when you see her long form notes, you'll understand, is the likelihood of actually generating any substantive business from online leads is so small if you're just doing it as your own standalone thing. People will argue against all the things I just said to you guys, and they'll say, well, I generate all my leads from social media or whatever. Well, what else are you doing? What types of leads are those? And are those leads are they buyer leads, first-time buyer leads? And are those buyer leads coming from, I don't know, Zillow Flex? Is that what you're calling an online lead generator? Or I'm getting all my leads from a CRM. Well, are the leads coming from your CRM, a Zillow Flex CRM that you're paying a 40% referral fee on? You guys see how you have to ask better, deeper questions to really truly understand what the person's telling you. And then when you do, just like I was giving you the example of the tariff conversation, the top of today's show, you'll discover a lot of times people obfuscate knowingly or unknowingly the truth. Maybe they just don't know. Maybe they just think a CRM with a bunch of leads from Zillow that they didn't generate, where they're paying a 40% referral fee. Maybe that is their interpretation of what, CRM marketing is all about. And we already gave you our opinion of it, especially if you're paying a 40% referral fee on those buyer leads. Almost doesn't make sense to even consider doing that. So hopefully I'm not fire hosting you guys with too much information. Really, if you're looking to have the ultimate decoder ring, you obviously want to join Premier Coaching, and you can just click the link below or just go to premiercoaching.com. So Julie, as far as demographics go, that's really at the end of the day what we're focused on as far as where they should be putting their best energies as far as social media, correct?
Well, that's right. But realize what those demographics are. As you said earlier, a lot of what does come when the lead does turn into something are the first-time buyers. So maybe that's your thing. And maybe posting some strategies for first-time buyers to obtain, say, a 3% down FHA mortgage would be a good thing for you to post, knowing that that's the demographic. Also, it might be interesting for you to know that videos on social media, when you use video has a 1,200% more share rate than text and images combined. So if you're not doing videos, you're probably missing out. And you made a great point, Tim, about some of these statistics, right? That's why it's hard to track a lot of this. That's why I have, our notes and our extra notes. So for example, just on Facebook, 92% of realtors use Facebook. They say they use it for lead generation. But to your point, what does that even mean? Because another stat, two things can be true at once, 19% say that just 1 to 5% of their business actually comes from social media. So if they say they're using, 92% of agents say they use Facebook for lead gen, but only 1 to 5% of their business actually comes from it, what's really going on there? They're posting a lot, but they're not getting a lot of results. And that's why you've got to know why do people go there and how do you engage? But let's move on to Instagram for a second.
Well, let's hover here for a second. I'm looking at your long form notes.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the research, and when you're trying to decide who you're going to listen to, if the company is providing the research about the usefulness of CRMs and long-term lead follow-up, or all CRM companies, you pretty much can assume that it's a bunch of garbage information, because where's their motivation to tell you what we've been telling you for years about long-term lead follow-up, right? And it's interesting when you go through all these statistics. There was that article that was written in, it's probably now 8 or 10 years ago by a guy named Teak Wiggins, and it was on Inman News Features. And in the article, he was essentially validating what our thesis had been for years, that long-term lead follow-up is in essence a waste of time. Well, I'm going to tell you guys an interesting story. about 6 months ago, I didn't tell you this, Julie. I went on Inman's site and I also did a deep search into Google. I found where the article had been published before, but I didn't find the article. The article has been removed. There is
That's
no
interesting.
right. I was going to message Teak through LinkedIn, but I didn't. But the article is completely gone. All of his research, and he did this ridiculous amount of research to invalidate the idea of long-term lead follow-up, and it was removed. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but if I were, I would point out the fact that most of the major companies that are sponsoring, say, for example, Inman News Features and others similar to it, are the ones that his research were essentially in conflict with. So it's very likely that when Inman changed hands and became more focused on selling stuff to agents versus what they used to be, which is basically real estate news, that they then said, well, you know what, this Teak Wiggins article, albeit true, is not in alignment with what our vendors are paying us to average. You know, they're spending millions of dollars with us. We sure as hell don't want to invalidate what they're saying. The article, I cannot find it. So call it a conspiracy theory, call it what you want to call it, but it isn't there. All right, Julie.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so let's put the period at the end of the Facebook sentence. We want to know why people do go to Facebook. A lot of people go there for news and to find out about events, what's happening. They're part of community Facebook pages. So if you're an agent that does a lot of past client center of influence outreach, and you're an agent who maybe is doing a lot of open houses, well, it makes sense to post that on Facebook because people do state that that's what they're going there for. So that just makes sense. Now let's go on to Instagram and understanding that a little bit better. The demographics and behavior are actually quite similar to Facebook, which surprised me. I always think of Instagram as a little bit younger, but they have 2 billion monthly active users. Again, these stats are worldwide. The most active, again, 18 to 34 years old. Average time spent on Instagram is about 33 minutes a day, a slightly more female user majority. But why do people go there? As stated by lots of surveys and things like that. Why do people go there? For visual inspiration, design, travel, lifestyle, and homes. To follow creators, small businesses, and local experiences. What's worked for agents is Reels. They have 49% more engagement than still photos do. Carousel posts like before and after pictures, or what $500,000 buys you in your city, or for some of you, $1 million or $2 million. Open house walkthroughs tend to get a lot of engagement. And behind the scenes content and educational tips, like how to get a great mortgage interest rate. These are things that do engage on Instagram. And a coaching client example, one of our clients saw a major spike in engagement after adding simple video walkthroughs with voiceover and including the story or the theme was this or that. Did you like this approach or this staging, or did you like that? So putting in stories and questioning and trying to get some engagement. I've seen some of our coaching clients doing this with finding the hidden Easter egg, or wait till the end of the video, you won't believe the backyard. Having a little hook. The video in the first place is better than still pictures, but then engaging and making somebody curious about that home. So lead generation stats, 68% of realtors use Instagram. But again, here we have a conversion ratio. There might be that many people using it and spending a lot of time on it, but the conversion ratio is still just 0.4% to 1.2%.
Well, but Julie, that's funny. I love you. Fun fact, Instagram has over 290 million posts tagged at
#cat.
In other words, #cat.
Which is probably why people go there. They're going there to see those cat videos.
The cat videos are hilarious. Let's just be honest. But
I agree.
I want you guys to really focus on what the most important thing of all of this so far, in my view, is. Most active is 18 to 34 years old, and it edges towards the younger. So most active is that, 18-year demographic, basically, but it's mostly people that are younger than 30. And when you go down to TikTok, which Julie's about to talk about, it's even younger. Are those people buying or selling real estate, dear listener? Now here's what people will tell you. I've heard them say this before. You're creating relationships for the next generation of buyers and sellers. I need money today, son.
Dude, how long are you going to wait?
Yeah, exactly. I don't need to wait 10 years for the next generation of buyers or sellers to decide they want to buy or sell. I want to go after the people that now have their hands in their air and say, yes, I want to sell my house. Go listen to the podcast we did yesterday, dear listener, and we talk about the expireds. In every single marketplace where we've done this, there are thousands of expireds in the last 6 months. The last 12 months, even more. And each of those expireds on average, assuming your average sale price is 400 grand, is going to pay out at least $10,000. Each of those expireds between buyer and seller side is paying out probably on average $20,000. Okay. You guys are saying, I need to go create all this social media presence and all this branding and all this marketing. And why do you want to do that, Bob? Well, it's because I need to do it in order to generate leads. Okay, Bob. So your goal is to generate leads. Why don't you instead just call the people who have their hands in the air already saying, hello, yes, here I am. I'm across, your neighbor across the way. My listing just expired. I'm looking for a new listing agent. Why do you spend so much time? It's like if I read all Julie's statistics, and I realized that the idea of spending so much time trying to market and advertise, spend money, time is money. Well, it's not, time is not money, but in essence, you guys are spending time where you could be earning money, right? And so trying to create real estate media content for people that can't transact even if they wanted to. And here's something kind of funny. Julie circled this in her notes. I love this. This is from, these sources are Real Simply, press dis a dot AI. I can't read all your notes, Julie.
Valhalla Network,
Hootsuite,
Yeah.
Valhalla Network, and the close. With the exception of the close, those are all basically companies that are selling agent CRM type information. So I'm going to read you guys something funny that she outlined. 60%. This is according to the companies selling this content, these products to agents. And remember, survey says, according to one of the companies who has a dog in the fight, 60% of all agents say social media marketing provides the highest rate of return. But Julie's first point from today, I'm going to go back to the report here, said, where is it, Julie? Here it is. The first point that we read to you guys today was, we know statistically, you guys know from experience, there's only a 1% click-through rate on that type of marketing, and it generates essentially 0.4% of those leads convert. How can those things be true at the same time? 60% of all agents say they get their highest return on investment, and yet we know statistically that cannot be true. Who's telling the truth? You decide. It's your money, it's your time, it's your real estate business, but I'll caution you that you already know the truth. And wherever you're resisting the most is where your growth needs to be. And so when Julie and I say the words call and expired, if you feel yourself shuddering, chances are that's where your growth needs to be. You intuitively know what we're saying is true, and yet you want to think that the social media marketing, advertising, the passive stuff is going to win the game for you. Oh, we're going to find some statistics that invalidates what Tim and Julia are saying. But the statistics are coming from the companies that are trying to sell you into the belief that you never have to be a proactive lead generator. So don't be one of the 71% of agents who, like last year, sold no real estate. And it's the 71%. Look, they're not serious about real estate. They're not serious about doing the real work of real estate. They're not realizing that this is a real business that requires real consistent effort, which is going to require you to put in real time. And it's like anything else. It's worth doing as long as you stick with it over the long term. And you got to stop looking for the shortcuts. Social media, marketing, advertising, branding, all of that is there to enhance the proactive lead generation, not to replace it. Be clear about that in your head. Julie?
Yes. So on to TikTok, the attention magnet. There's a lot of talk about TikTok going away completely. So maybe in a few months, this won't even be relevant. But for now, demographics and behavior, 1.5 plus billion monthly users. Of the three, currently it's growing the fastest. Most active, yes, it does skew younger, but the most active viewers are 25 to 34 years old. Average time spent now, the two previous were about a half an hour, we're up to 55 minutes per day. Slight male user majority. And why do people say they go there? For entertainment, trends, and storytelling. To laugh, to learn, to scroll without being sold to. What works for agents? Fast-paced property walkthroughs and this is something that kept on coming out, trending sounds. There's this thing out.
We got to stop here. What works for agents to get views? Okay. What works for agents to get views? Isn't that what this is supposed to be?
Yeah.
Isn't that what you guys are looking for? What's going to work to get me a view? How can I increase my views on Instagram or on my Reels? Why are you trying to increase your views? What's the point? Well, more people have seen my content. Okay, that's true, probably, if we're to believe the algorithms. So what have you looked at your analytics in Instagram? Let's just assume that you have, and you've seen that you're skewing, just like we said, to a younger generation, and they're the ones that are consuming your content. Are you getting any leads from it? No, I'm building a brand. I'm building a brand, Tim. You don't understand. This is the modern days, man. We're building a brand. It's going to take time. You got to do this over and over and over again. I have to create 6 billion videos, and over time, I'm going to have to all this mountain of blah, 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 blah. Isn't that the lie that a lot of you guys are trying to talk yourselves into believing? I'm going to shed a little bit of light on that, the fallacy of that thinking. And I want you just to pull back the curtains of misbelief. Remember, I told you the top of the story about the tariff and the 7% and the whole thing. Do your own homework on this. Don't just believe Julie and I. Do your own homework. This year, right now, every single real estate agent, when they get a license, is going to be given essentially a pass key to a website. The website is going to have them put in a picture, read a script, and then it's going to create an avatar of them. So there's going to be a virtual Bob, and the Bob's going to, be able to be essentially simulating in 4K, indistinguishable from real Bob, maybe even a little better looking than real Bob, filters are there for a reason. And all of a sudden, real Bob now is able to create a mountain, a tsunami, an endless waves of social media content around real estate. Endless, 24/7. It's Bob o'clock wherever you are at all times. And there's a new reel. Bob is dancing on TikTok. Bob is singing you a song while he eats his spaghetti on Facebook. I'm trying to make you guys laugh, but I'm trying to make you realize with his cat, of course. What I'm trying to help you realize is that social media in its present form is already ubiquitous. Everybody is doing it, but everybody and their Uncle Bob are going to be doing it. And they're going to be doing it at such high velocity that it's going to completely nullify any even remote effectiveness it had in the past. So where does that lead you? That's the reason that you have to have all of those hypothetical folks that are showing up in your life on social. You've got to pull them out of social and stick them in a newsletter. And then those are going to be the higher quality people. And what you'll discover is those, 6,000 views you had on your TikTok video, you're going to get maybe 6 people that'll subscribe to your newsletter, because most people were watching it while they're doing something else. If they're even watching it all, not even really paying attention. So you got to see it for what it is. And I realize it's so seductive, because the belief is the more influence I have, the more famous I have, the bigger brand that I have, the less likely I'll ever have to do the real work of real estate. And I'll never have to do what Tim and Julie tell me to do. I'll never have to call an expired, because they're all going to be calling me. They're all going to be seeing me as the mayor of my town. And anytime anyone's thinking about selling their house, they're automatically just going to call Bob. Doesn't work that way. It never has worked that way. It never will work that way. That is what the people who are trying to sell you into the myth of it working that way want you to believe, so they can still monetize you. You know what I'm saying is true. Look at your own behavior. How do you go about choosing service professionals? How do you go about validating somebody? Don't you do exactly what Julie and I have kind of laid out on today's podcast as far as your own behaviors? Well, so will your prospective customers too. Julie?
Well, that's right. And that's why I highlighted in each of these 3 cases why people are saying they go there. And none of the surveys did they say they're going there to go find a real estate agent. They went there to be entertained. They went there to see the billions of cat videos. They went there to see what the community events are. They went there to communicate and reconnect with people they went to high school with. So I think that some of these statistics conflict with each other. I understand why agents would say it's my number 1 lead source, because they're conflating. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram didn't send you the lead. Somebody found you there, like they used to find you in a phone book.
Now
it's
think
just
about what you
another
just
method
said.
of communication.
Little Miss Julie just said something very, 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 very important. And I hope you guys are understanding. Like when Julie and I, we'll say to you, send us show ideas, send us topics, ask us questions, ask us anything. And what I'll do is I'll direct you to message us in Instagram. And I'm doing that because I want you to obviously follow us in Instagram, but also because that's the easiest channel of communication for me to keep track. And we have 2 assistants to keep track of the questions that are coming in, right? Now, if I say, and let's say one of you ends up buying Premier Coaching, if I say that lead came in from Instagram, that's not really true, is it? I mean, technically it did. You sent me the message through Instagram, but it really come through Instagram. So let's say you're, you get a call out to sell a house, a listing, right? And you ask the person, well, you probably don't ask, but let's say you're following our system, you pre-qualify and you ask them, why did you decide to call me out for the job of selling your home today? And they're going to say, well, I saw you on Instagram. And you're going to go, damn, that Tim and Julie, they don't know what they're talking about. I got this lead from Instagram. Unless you ask the secondary question, which is on our pre-qualification script, which says, are there any other reasons that you called Tim and Julie out, or any other reasons you called me out for the job of selling your home? Anyone, maybe refer you to me or anything like that? Then they'll say, oh yeah, well, that's true. I know Sally from, from church said you sold her uncle's house and you did a great job. Oh, so in other words, you were a referral from somebody, and then you found me on Instagram, much like as if you had gone to the white pages back in the olden times to find somebody's phone number. You guys
They
get
look
it?
you up on Instagram.
Exactly. Or
So
Facebook or
that's
LinkedIn.
right.
And so
Like when
you are,
somebody texts you, Tim, do you go, thank you, iPhone, for sending me that lead?
that's right.
Your phone didn't send you the lead. They just looked you up there. They just found you there. And I think it's an important distinction because people go around saying, well, my social media generated all of this
Well,
business.
but Julie, but the CRMs, they obfuscate the truth. They hide the truth.
Absolutely.
And so they'll keep track of how many direct messages you're getting from Instagram, and
Mhm.
their analytics won't be certainly asking what the other source of the lead was. It'll say the lead came from Instagram. And so you're going to have all this bad information, and then you're going to make bad decisions based on bad information. And the next thing you know, you're going to have gone down a wrong road because you're going to be believing all your leads come from social media, where they don't. They come from the fact you're involved in the PTA. They come from the fact you've been involved in the community forever. They come to the fact from the fact that, you know, all the things that you're doing, and they're just finding you through social media. It's like a virtual
That's right.
brochure.
Well, and this is why you do need to have social media profiles. A lot of it's buried in one of my other statistics is that people do want to be able to look you up and see kind of what you're made of, who you are. You know, maybe they want to know whether you're involved in any charities or whatever the deal is. They want to feel like they kind of know who they're going to have come over and talk about listing their home. So we're not in any way preaching that you should just wash your hands of all social media. What we're trying to establish today is how to look at it, how to understand what it actually is, and how to utilize that to support the real work of real estate, to not think that it is the real work of real estate. Does that make sense, Tim? Just to clarify?
100%. And no, 100%. So really, the real work of real estate is a proactive lead generation. The passive lead generation, which is everything else, is there to reinforce it. And if you have to choose between doing one, only do the real work of real estate. Because if you, for example, decide you're going to follow our coaching and you're going to decide to be a listing agent, let's say there's tons of opportunity for expired listings in your particular marketplace. You follow our system, you get up to 10 listings at all times, and you are now able to make consistently, because 4 of those sell per month, you're now making consistently $500,000 per year from having taken 10 listings. You can do all that without social media. You can do all that without marketing and branding. You just have to have the scripts to pick up the phone, to call the people, to set the appointments, pre-qualify, to send the pre-listing pack. You guys get it? This is the real work of real estate. If you want to know how the top producing, the true perennial top producing agents in the world, how they do their business, they're going to tell you social media. They're going to tell you marketing. They're going to tell you all the things. But what they're not going to tell you is they get a ton of business from the fact that they're really involved in their church, their synagogue, or their mosque. They're not going to tell you that they volunteer for every one of their 4 kids' soccer teams. They're not going to tell you that they're actually boots on the ground doing the real work. They're not going to tell you that they go every Sunday to the church or to the church basement and, you know, feed homeless people. And that's how they're going to say, oh, it's my social media. Don't you see me on TikTok? I mean, serious, I'm trying to make you guys laugh. Hopefully you're not thinking I'm more obnoxious than I actually am. Maybe you are, but really the big takeaway should be is that you can do everything necessary to be massively famous in real estate and not ever know how to make a really good video. Not ever have to have this, you know, perpetual, you know, pecking bird at the side of your head telling you to update your social media profile and all the rest of it. You just have to accept the fact that you're making things too damn hard. You're making it like, guys, you want to do all this for what? To generate leads. There are thousands of ready, willing, and able real estate leads around you at all times. And the easiest ones are the ones that already have their hands in the air. Hello, I'm the FSBO down the street. I want to sell my house and I want to buy another one. That's a listing lead. That's going to be a buyer lead. You could sell their listing yourself. You could have them buy one of your other listings. And yet you guys drive past that with your blinders on and you just think, I just need to create more social media and I'm going to wait around for people to call. Doesn't make sense, does it? Not if you're serious about real estate.
That's very true. And it, you know, we even have a coaching client who is very clear on this. Let me just say that first, who has 1 million views on a TikTok video. Okay. 1 million views. So you're
Lance
thinking
Kenmore, we're talking about you.
Yeah. Like you're thinking, I got to get more views. I got to get more views. And maybe you've got 10,000, go you. He's got 1 million views on one TikTok video. Any transactions from that? No, he's just having fun with it.
No, let me tell the whole story.
Yeah,
I had him, Julie, I had him on the podcast.
I know this happened actually after your podcast. This was the Costco
Oh,
door video that I was telling you about.
oh, right. Well,
But he
let me
does
tell.
like having people see him at Costco saying, "Hey, that was a really cool video." He, he's not confused about that being a lead generator. He's doing it for fun to connect more with his past clients at Center of Influence. Has his head screwed on straight about that. My point in bringing that up is here's somebody who actually has 1 million views. Isn't that what everybody, I've got to get more views. I've got to post more videos. I've got to get more. And yet, even with 1 million, think of how many that is. I bet there's not even 1 million people that live in his county. Okay. That's a lot of views. Any real estate transactions, any closings? No. Lots of views, no closings.
Well, so he was on our podcast. It was last December, Lance Kenmore, and you guys can obviously find it. And we were talking about either that video or another one, and he was very proud of it. And we just had a conversation about how he's way down on listings and how they had like 8 listings and they usually have 30 or something like that. And so he was in kind of in panic mode for lack of inventory. His whole business is fueled off the leads that come from the listings. And then he started rolling in and telling me about this TikTok video, and I asked him, so exactly what Julie just did. How many leads did you get from that? I think the number was like 6. I said, really, 6 leads? I was, okay, that's interesting. It's a podcast. I'm not trying to be rude to the guy. I'm not trying to interrogate him, but I can't help myself sometimes. And I said, so tell me about those 6 leads. I go, how many of those? Well, he goes, well, 3 of them were buyer leads that never amounted to anything, new buyers, they couldn't qualify. And the other 3 were centers of influence and past clients, tops my past clients. Oh, okay. Just so I'm clear. The video you created, what you generated from it were 3 leads from people that already knew, loved, and trusted you. Lance, how big is your center of influence and past client list? I think it was it's massive because he sold real estate
thousands.
for like long as Julie and I have. It was tens of thousands, but let's just say the valid list is maybe 5,000 or 6,000. And I asked him, Lance, so what are you doing for your centers of influence and past client lists? And it was sort of like marketing, the passive, the postcards. They do a Santa thing at Christmas. They do just the normal things. I said, so does it make sense that in your centers of influence and past client list right now, of the, say, for every 1,000, does it make sense to you that there's probably in your marketplace, because there's a lot of movement, that a lot of people moving in and out, that there's probably 100 people that are thinking about selling their house in the next 6 months? And he goes, yes. I said, so why haven't you guys called them? Why haven't you actually picked up the phone and start calling all those folks and using the scripts that I already know you know how to use? Why are you so celebratory of a TikTok video where you got 1 million views that generated 3 leads that we would have gotten anyway had you called those sellers? What? I don't understand. And it was funny. You guys should watch the
light bulb go off.
It's literally the witnessing of somebody having a real live, honest to God epiphany, and the epiphanies are like moments of truth. You guys call it that. And all moment of truth is you basically having reality kick you upside the head with something you already knew. And so that's really what it is. And it's like, he already knew what he should have been doing. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this. Julie's their coach. They, for the next 2 months, took all their team. They have like 6 or 7 buyers agents, I think. And they all basically started calling all their centers of influence and past clients. And I believe they exceeded 30 listings, 30 active listings as a result.
38 right now.
Yeah. Or I could have said, Lance, you go, girl, you go and pick up, you do more TikTok videos.
More that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you guys know off those videos, like on YouTube, if you do a video that gets 1 million views, which is, hard, it's like $3,000. That's how much money you'll make off ads. It's complete and total joke. And yet, how many of you guys right now are falling prey to coaches, trainers, product creators that are all telling you this Shangri-La of everything is going to be on the other side of you having some huge social media presence? I have a little pre-qualification 3-question thing that you are going to use to next time you talk to one of these hojos that are trying to sell you their magic, box of secrets, right? Have you ever sold real estate before, Mr. Magic Hojo Secret Seller? Have you ever sold real estate before? If the answer is no, do not listen to them. Okay. Number 2, how long on average will it take me if they have sold real estate before? Actually, my second question would be, I want you to prove to me that this actually works from not just a testimonial, but I want you to give me actual statistics that I can hold you accountable to. So if I do this many videos over this amount of time, I want you to put in writing how many leads I'll be able to create, how many closings I'll be able to have. And then I will pay you off every closing. I'm not just going to pay you for something else. I'm going to pay you when I make money. That way our incentives are aligned. I'll get paid when you get paid. Does that make sense? They'll say no. Then the third question I'd want you to ask is, okay, so how long realistically, will I have to do this? And if if their answer, like, and before I start seeing the results, if their answer is any longer than 60 days, then that should be an automatic red flag, because you can generate revenue today, money, from calling your centers of influence and past clients, from calling expired sellers. Because what these guys are hoping you're going to do is believe their pixie dust works at high volume. And we have the numbers. We gave you a lot of the statistics today. And then they want you to keep believing it. And they want you to get so wrapped up in doing it that you keep doing it, even if you're not getting results from doing it. You've gotten to the point where you're the one that's always out there looking for where the leprechaun hid his gold. If I just keep digging, if I just keep looking, one of these days I'm going to get a lead that's going to validate that I haven't wasted all my time. And then what happens if you've done it for so long that your ego is so wrapped up in not having to want to admit that you made a mistake. And that's where a lot of you guys are. And that's what they're banking on. What are you thinking, Julie?
Well, I would add one more, and I have done this with coaching clients, which is if you ask some of these companies for 5 names and phone numbers of agents who have actually closed transactions as a result, many times they will not get a call back with that information. And that's a great filter. I mean, that's not that hard of a question. But you're asking for closings, not impressions, not views, not any of that. Actually closed transactions. I think part of that is because they don't actually track the closings. They just track, sending, a chaos into your stream. But that's another great filter. I like your 3 as well.
Well, here's another one. Okay. So like when you're listening to some guru talk about all the leads they generate online, what you need to ask more questions. And I kind of tipped my hat towards this earlier. So are you buying leads? Well, I'm doing marketing and branding and social media. Okay. But are you buying leads from one of the zillions of places that sells you buyer leads, like Zillow being the easiest one to pick on? Okay. So you're saying right now that you're buying leads from Zillow. You're committing to pay 40% of your gross commission to Zillow for that lead you've generated. That's in your mind, that's essentially a good business decision. Let's do the math on that. And you do the math on that. And most of those agents that are buying leads like that, after they paid all their expenses, their broker, their whatever, not even paying for the gas and the 14 lunches they had to buy for those buyers, they're making usually around, off a $10,000 commission check, they're maybe making $1,200 to $1,500. That's the industry average. And yet you guys are I sold 400 houses last year, all to buyers from online lead generation. What they're not saying is they all came from Zillow. What they're not saying is 40% of their revenue went to Zillow. What they're not saying is they basically are essentially making the same amount of money as if they'd been working at Home Depot. And these are just facts. Do your own homework on this and make your decisions when you're moving forward. You've got to ask yourself, and I said this earlier, guys, it's so true with everything in life, unfortunately. Wherever you're resisting the most is where your growth needs to be. Everybody can always improve at everything. But if you're resisting ever having learned how to do the real work of real estate, you will always be in panic mode. You will always feel insecure. You're never actually going to have consistent cash flow. Once you know how to actually, it will become effortlessly every day, generate a listing lead, if not a listing taken. When you get to the point where you can do that every single day, that is the ultimate sense of power and control that you're never going to get when you're trying to basically market, brand, and social media your way to lead generation. Those are just the facts. You know this is true. Intuitively, you know what I'm saying is true. So if you have limited money, which all of us do, if you have limited time, unfortunately, which all of us do, and you want to help people and you want to make money, doesn't it make sense for you to learn how to go after the people that are most likely to do business with you? And those are the ones that have already self-identified as being motivated sellers, which is what we want you to focus on. Doesn't that make sense? Then what's holding you back? What's holding you back? Why are you saying no to yourself and your potential as, becoming the best version of yourself as a real estate practitioner? That's a little coming to Jesus question you need to be asking yourself. For the rest of you, make sure you're moving forward and you're joining Premier Coaching. It's the next natural step for all of you. The link is below to join Premier Coaching, or just go to premiercoaching.com. In the meantime, guys, thank you. On iTunes, there are over 5 million podcasts. And in our section last week, we were 40 or 43. So that's pretty phenomenal. And that's because of the fact that you appreciate the fact that Julie and I are taking the time every single day out of our lives, the time we don't get back, to give you guys the real truth about what it takes to be successful in real estate and in life long term. And we appreciate the fact that you appreciate the information. Please continue to be loyal fans It makes us feel wonderful to know that we're having a meaningful impact on your business and your personal lives. Do us a favor, let others know about the podcast. Give us a 5-star review over on iTunes. Help us be more in alignment with our highest and truest purposes on this planet, which is being of service to all of you. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.